All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. The Centerville City Council is now in session. We thank you for your patience. We're sorry about the delay. Trying to track down the judge to make sure we do this official. If not, I'll have to be as official as it gets. We've just concluded a budget work session where we reviewed some exciting accounting details of the city's budget for the past year and looking forward to the next year. We'll note for the record that 4 of the 5 city council members are here. We expect Council Member Bill Ince to join us shortly. He's en route, but was delayed. We'll start tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance, and we've asked Caleb Gordon if he will come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, after which I will provide a prayer or a thought. It's a big group, Caleb.
Will everyone stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Our Father in heaven, we gratefully bow our heads at the beginning of this city council meeting. We are grateful for this opportunity for self-government to meet together and make decisions on behalf of our community. We sincerely appreciate the many volunteers and neighbors who help each other in our city and who help make life in this area so pleasant and positive. We recognize that there are some in our community who are mourning, and pray for them to be comforted at this difficult time. We pray for the safety of our first responders who are helping those in need with medical emergencies or police emergencies, and pray that they will be protected. We pray that the council will have wisdom and that all of us will treat each other with respect as we make decisions and discuss issues in our community. And we thankfully say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen. All right, Steve, what's the... Okay, all right. So Lisa, the judge, has delegated the authority to swear in the new youth city council members to me. So let's go. We're going to do these youth city council swearing in before we have the open session. So is there anything you want to say before then?
Just that we're excited to have a new youth council. This year we had a large turnover. I think we have 14 new council members tonight, and only 6 or 8 remaining from last year. So it's a whole new beginning. So we're excited to have you new youth council members, and we will expect a lot out of you, but know that you will be able to be a great example to the other, the members of our community and the youth that you interact with. So at this time, I think we'll just turn over the time over to the mayor. Would you like me to read their names and have them all stand up here? Or you?
Sure, why don't you invite them up? They've all
So
got to come up anyway.
New youth council members and those who are returning to the youth council but need to be sworn in again. And so Isaac Getz, Hudson Christensen, Scotty Cutler, Jace Barton, Sarah Moore, Emily Erickson, Hannah Chamberlain, Shaylee Nilsson, Kimball Johnson, Brittany Wait, Ali Silos, Becca Bogrenic, Isabel Santini, Anna Roberts, and then Eliza Greer. Anybody else who's returning that needs to be resworn in? Lana. Okay, thank you.
Lisa, up on the screen there.
Oh, Oh, nice. Thank you. That helps me. Okay, we are ready.
All right. So this is pretty simple. I'll ask you to raise your right hand to the square and repeat after me the following. I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. What do you think? They pass? All right.
While the mayor is shaking their hands. Oh, yes, you have, yep. They all need to sign that. So if you'll each take one, we'll get some pens and you can sign it downstairs. And we'll hand them back. Okay. Thank you. So tonight, instead of sitting for the council meeting, we will excuse ourselves and the parents to join us downstairs for an ice cream social. Sorry.
Do we have a new youth mayor?
Yes, we do. Eliza Greer, right here.
Okay.
So, yeah. Eliza's great. Okay, so Eliza, if you'll lead the way, we'll have the parents, unless you have anything else, Mayor?
I don't have anything else. We're excited to put you to
Okay.
work. The Youth Council does a lot of great things in our community.
Yes, they do. Okay, so we'll go downstairs and have an ice cream social and let the city council meeting continue without us.
We'll work on the exciting
I'm
budget
sure
items.
Okay, thanks for excusing us. Okay. Parents, please join us downstairs.
I bet you, some of you scouts wish you were going downstairs, but you got to stay for this exciting stuff. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the open session. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to comment on any matter of municipal concern. We have a couple of public hearings, I think, but this is a chance to speak on something or anything else that's of municipal concern. I'm aware of Mr. Flannery who would like to speak. So we'll first hear from him, and then I'll open it up, and anyone else, including you scouts, if you've got something that's really been bothering you that you'd like to speak to the city council about, we'd welcome you as well. Mr. Flannery?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I know some of you, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this day. The reason I'm here is for failure to renew my business license, and it caused the city to revoke my business license. Therefore, there's a statute that says that any person that's been revoked cannot renew for a year. So in essence, what that would do for me is force me to lock my doors. I wanted to just stand before you today and give you a reason, give you a brief history, and tell you what got me to this point. I think the reason I'm here today is, if I can back up a few years and just give you a little bit of history, I'll keep it brief, but I'd like you to understand. Many years ago when I was a young man, my wife told me, she said, "Tim, if you open store 3, I'm going to divorce you." I thought about that for 2 weeks, and she knew store 3 was in the works. And I opened store 3 anyway. And I opened 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. My wife stuck with me all that time. She always did my books by my side. And but I wish I would have listened to her, because she knew, she got it, she understood. I wish I would have stayed with my 2 stores. But going forward, as we grew, at one time I was doing $1.5 million a year in tuxedo rental. I had stores from the south end of the valley to the north end of the valley, and things were really quite well. And I got to a point to where about 5.5 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. At that time, I had closed my store on Main Street, and I had moved my store over across from Walmart. That week, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She was my main bookkeeper, my main everything, my main support, my reason for living. After that, I shut down everything. I shut down all my stores, I sold my stores, closed my stores, and my focus became keeping her alive. For 3 years, I fought to keep her alive, and I lost that battle about 2 years ago. You get me misty-eyed, but forgive me, because I loved her dearly. But what happened, after she passed, I thought, you know what, I'm going to open up one store. And I couldn't think of a better place than right here in Centerville. I love this community. I've been part of this community for 30 years. I have a list, and probably people here, I know Councilman McEwen, but I've got a lot of people here that vouch for me, my character and my business. I feel I'm an asset to this community. My reviews are impeccable, and that's from just members of our community. You know, before when I had 8 stores, I wish I could say the same, and that's the part that my wife understood that I didn't. I got really big really fast. Now I can promise to you, if you allow me, I'll never open another store. But my wife always said we grow too soon old and too late smart. And that's about the truth of it. So what happened here? And why didn't I renew my business license on time? When I opened, well, let me tell you a little bit about her cancer. I had health insurance for the two of us. I paid $1,700 a month, and it hurt bad to pay that, but we paid it and paid it. She was diagnosed with cancer. Select Health said, you can do as a 55-year-old, well, she was 51 at the time, as a 51-year-old woman, we will do this, this, or this, but we won't do this, this, and this. And I said, but this procedure's curative. And 4 times the year before, they had paid for it in full from my oncologist alone. But for me, for some reason, they said, it's experimental. I said, it's not experimental. You guys paid for it before. And then they said, well, we had a review board. So they determined that they weren't going to cover it. So we ended up, I closed everything. My focus was nowhere where it needed to be, but on my wife. We moved to Massachusetts, compliments of Mitt Romney to try to get her better. She had surgery there, and it went okay. Ultimately, we lost her. But when we came back out here, Select Health said, not only did we not cover her procedure, we won't cover complications from an unauthorized procedure. So when she died, I was left $1 million in medical bills, in debt. I went to an attorney and I said, I can't, I had the state attorney general coming after me by then. I said, I can't pay this. And he said, you don't have any debt. I said, pull my wife's name up and look. There was $1 million worth of medical bills that weren't paid. So my life was in turmoil at that point. After she passed, I ended up filing. I had lost in 4 years' time. I had lost my mother, my dad, my wife, and my business. Somehow I found the strength to get back up on my feet, and I said, I'm going to open a store back up in Centerville. The part your spouse takes when they leave is a lot of your history. And I've opened that store back up, and I've so many people I remember, so many people that know me, so many people that vouch for me. I get my history back, and I feel like it's where I'm supposed to be every single day. However, when I started that business, I was very underfinanced. I was broke, and I opened it up on a shoestring, and I tried to get it going. I can tell you a year ago today, my landlord is Steve
Tate.
And Steve will tell me, oh, Tim, we're not making progress, we're not making progress. I can tell you a year ago today, I owed Steve $15,000 in back rent. Today, this month, I paid June's rent in June, and the $15,000 is gone. It's paid. You know, I paid it in full. As I've moved up forward, Memorial Day of last year, Memorial Day this year, I'm up 50%. First weeks of summer last year, first weeks of summer this year, I'm up 50%. So I feel like I've made tremendous progress in getting back on my feet and being truly an asset to the community. But the penalty, and I'll be honest with you, at times, because my wife did my books, I have stacks of mail that go unanswered. And then there's times when I just could not, that first year was hard, really, really hard. It was hard to pay my bills, it was hard to pay my rent, but I just kept going because I knew it just kept going and I felt like it was where I was supposed to be. I still feel that way, and I don't have any problem with the penalty or the anything as far as the court goes or the city renewing the license or anything like that. The problem that I have is that the city and the council could at this time lock my doors. And I think it's because maybe I'm a little stupid, maybe I'm a little slow, but I think I feel like I've always been an honest person. I've tried to do the right thing, and I can't just say I overlooked it because I knew, but I just didn't think the penalty would be so harsh. And two, probably because I just didn't have the money, Right now, though, I feel like my position is, like I say, from $15,000 to current, paying June's rent in June. And it's like that across the board on everything. So I feel like I've made tremendous progress, and I would just beg the council. I know it's hard you have an ordinance here that says flat out that you can't, once somebody's license has been revoked, they can't renew it for a period of a year. So I don't know what I do for a year. I talked to Mayor Cutler, and Mayor Cutler said, well, in essence, it would force you to close. It would, you got to lock your doors. So that's why I'm here, is to appeal to you and to stand before you and let you know I've been a reputable person. I feel a true asset to this community, and I'd like to continue on with my business. And I don't know what your decision process is, but any consideration on my behalf, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Flannery. We have an item scheduled later on the calendar that if, this evening, that if the city council chooses, they can ask the city attorney opinion and could discuss this business license ordinance and any potential changes to it. So
Okay.
We'll see if the city council is interested in looking at that.
Okay.
And thank you for sharing your perspective on things. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard during the open session? It's a rare time when Mr. Horsley has nothing to say. With seeing that, I'll close the open session and we'll turn to our business agenda. We have a number of sets of minutes that need approval. We'll start with the May 16th closed meeting minutes. We probably should just take these one at a time because there's so many of them. If there are any changes to the first one, which is the May 16th closed meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the May 16, 2017 closed minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, we have the May 30th work session minutes and closed meeting minutes. Any discussion or changes to the May 30th?
Motion to approve May 30th minutes as stated, closed in work session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We approve the May 30th work session and closed meeting minutes. Any further discussion?
And work.
And work session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, June 6th work session and regular city council meeting minutes.
I have a few changes in the regular city council.
Okay.
Page 4, just some clarification in the paragraph starting on line 16. The sentence on line 19, Mr. Snyder pointed out that the maximum building height, and for clarification, it should say maximum accessory building height in RL is 22 feet. And then continuing on, the proposed agricultural cap, I would like to add 4 accessory buildings of 50% would be 30 feet, 5 feet less than the 35-foot allowance for a primary structure.
Anybody have a problem with that clarifying suggestions?
And then next page, there was a misunderstanding in what I was saying, starting on line 18. Councilwoman Fillmore said she supports sending the matter to the Planning Commission and requested the Planning Commission take into consideration the probable reasons, and the minutes say probable reasons for the relocation of the fire station, but that's not at all what I was intending. I was saying take into consideration the probable reasons for the ordinance change in 2003 that prohibited the contractor use in the first place.
I don't recall that, but that sounds more like what your concern was. Any concerns with that?
Yeah, I don't remember it exactly that way, but I don't have a problem with the clarification.
Okay. Okay, you've got that language, or, great. Any other changes? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve the June 6th work session and regular city council meeting minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Lastly, the June 13th work session minutes. Any changes there?
Hang on 1 second.
Well, I'm letting you find that. I do have one as well. Page 1, line 45. Councilwoman Fillmore said she feels the city needs to have the right framework, but I wanted to add in there, Councilwoman Fillmore said she agrees there should not be an assumption of 100% retention, but she feels the need.
I don't have a problem with that. I think that was generally discussed.
It sounds like the right intent. I'm with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Any changes, Robin?
I was looking, but maybe I've missed the one I wanted to change, where we talked about the police chief and the hours. Is that not in this one? Is there
So, yeah, so that's on
It's on
page
page
3.
I'm wondering if some of that should be taken out.
Why?
Well, it was a matter of public record and a public meeting, so I understand the concern, but
But I don't know that it had any bearing on the meeting or what we were discussing down here on line 32.
You could just, you want to say Chief
Just
Child responded?
Strike, yeah, maybe Chief Child responded.
Responded.
I agree. I expressed
Or-
that concern that night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I was very concerned about that, so.
Could we strike at the beginning of line 32?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
And
agree.
just the rest of that paragraph? I
Mhm.
think that's more sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm agreeable to that.
Agreed.
So we're just going to strike
32 on.
33 through 36.
32 to
32
36.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the June 13th work session minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now this is the one that the scouts came for, the 2017 budget, right?
The poor substitution for an ice cream social.
First, we have a number of items here. Steve, I'll turn it to you to go through.
Okay, well, let me give a little background for the benefit of the scouts.
Yeah, now that we've got them awake.
Every year, the city council adopts a budget to govern the expenditures of the city for that year, and our year starts July 1, not January 1, so we call it the fiscal year, beginning July 1. So last June, the council adopted a budget for the following 12 months, which runs through this month, June. And the city departments are supposed to spend according to that budget. And there are, as shouldn't be surprising, some things circumstances that arise that require some amendments to that budget. It's kind of hard to predict for a whole year at a time. And the state law requires that a city not spend more than it has budgeted, but it does allow the city council to amend the budget throughout the year. And typically, that is done in June. It may be done earlier in the year, but most, if not all, cities take this action in June to amend their budgets so that there aren't any funds or departments that are exceeding their approved budgets. So the city's accountant, which is the CPA firm of Keddington and Christensen, and myself and Jake, we've been through the latest financial report quite thoroughly and have identified a number of places to amend the budget. One of the things that we realized hadn't been done was a large lump sum of money in the general fund that was approved last year was to be spread throughout the departments to cover the pay raises that were approved according to the council's guidelines. But that sum had never been spread throughout the departments. So we are amending departmental budgets to account for that. We also have a number of transactions between funds. The city has a number of funds which are, it's hard to explain this to scouts, but anyway.
It is. You probably just want to summarize.
Okay, all right. So these accounting entities, that doesn't help either. No. Okay, well, anyway, there's
Money from one pocket has to go to the other, otherwise it doesn't balance out.
there you go. Thank you. So anyway, there's a number of amendments, several pages actually, that are attached to Novus in order to bring all the city's funds into harmony where they're supposed to be, recording the transactions as they were intended. And that's the subject of the budget amendments. I don't know what else to say about that. We spent an hour in the work session just before this meeting reviewing each of these line by line on this attachment and explaining these to the council. So they've had this instruction. I'm glad to answer any questions if there are any from the audience about the amendments. Otherwise, I would recommend to you that you have a public hearing and then proceed to adopt the resolution.
Great. So the council spent an hour reviewing these various budget amendments earlier.
I might note as well, Mayor, excuse me, that many of these were matters that were brought to the council's attention over the past several months, and now we're just culminating in this formal amendment to the budget of those several matters.
So we've been studying this for a while, but before we can actually make the changes to move money from one envelope to another envelope, we have to hold a public hearing. So before I open the public hearing, any other comments or questions from council?
I'm just glad to see it all nicely cleaned up so that it makes sense and it's all in the right place.
It is, and
great job on
and that's somewhat in reference to we've changed our accounting staff at the city. And when you make a change, some people like to do things one way and others another way, and we've kind of revised the way we're reporting on our finances that should be cleaner and more transparent. There's a large report that will be provided and made public every month as part of our reporting obligations.
That big. This is the monthly financial report.
And that's available online for those who are interested.
Right, it's attached to the meeting
So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and invite anyone who would like to comment on the proposed amendments that are online and shown on the screen. Is there anyone who would like to comment on those?
There's 4 pages.
If there's no one who would like to comment, I will close the public hearing and turn to the council to consider Resolution 2017-11, which formally makes all these amendments to our FY17 budget.
Motion to approve Resolution 2017-11.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the council that we approve Resolution 2017-11, which amends the FY17 budget of funds. Any further discussion on that? Let's do a roll call vote, starting with Tammy.
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. Thank you. Now that we've got the fiscal year 17 taken care of. Let's look at fiscal year 18, which starts in July. And Steve, do you want to turn this over to Jake, or provide any comments before we look at ordinance 2017-14?
Well, let me mention for the benefit of the larger than usual audience that we have, that we're not actually adopting tonight the budget for the city. Normally, we would be adopting the budget for the city tonight, because that fiscal year, as I mentioned a minute ago, starts July 1, but the City Council has proposed an increase in the property tax rate, which is a source of revenue for the city. It's one of many sources of revenue. And because they have proposed a tax increase, the state law requires that the adoption of the budget be delayed until August, and that there be a public notification process and a public hearing early August on the proposed tax increase, and then the council will be adopting a budget after that. But there are some actions that I'm recommending the council go ahead with, because the tentative budget, which I submitted to the council a month ago, more than a month ago, does not rely on the property tax increase to fund these actions that are being recommended tonight. We do have salary administration guidelines that govern the pay raises that employees would receive. That's the action that I'm recommending tonight to the council. And that involves ordinance number 2017-14. This includes guidelines, written guidelines similar to what we've had for several years, and provides guidance on how much an employee is eligible for to receive, depending on where they are in the pay range and depending on their performance. We have no cost of living adjustments in our pay plan. And then the other action that I would recommend is the resolution showing on the agenda, which would give the Justice Court judge a pay raise. And the council's discretion in that matter is fairly limited, because state law does provide guidance on what a judge is supposed to receive. It's supposed to be at least as great a raise as the average for the other employees. And so that action is scheduled for tonight as well. So those would be the two actions that I recommend.
Thank you. And
Public hearing on this, by the way, was held on June 6th.
correct. I think we had a couple of public hearings on this, and we had some good comment. We appreciate that in the past, and we're open to hearing more comment over the next month. We're going to be sending out a newsletter and doing some other public information campaigning to try to spread the word on this, and would welcome feedback on that during that process. But my recommendation is to comply with our city manager and adopt the salary guidelines and the justice court judge, and get that done at this point.
I move that we approve ordinance number 2017-14, adopting the salary administration guidelines, pay grade schedule, and salary schedule for employees.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2017-14, which is the salary administration guidelines. Any further discussion on this item, noting that we've been discussing it for approximately 2 months, almost every meeting?
I would just say that it's helpful to understand that it's not a guaranteed raise, that there are performance-based things that factor into that, and that just because we pass the guidelines doesn't mean everybody's getting a raise.
Duly noted. Thank you for that clarification. So if you approve ordinance 2017, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. And resolution 2017-12 is the next up, which is, as Steve was saying, the state gives us very little leeway over the justice court, which is probably good. That way city councils don't, or none of us can really have much influence on the justice court. He's very independent.
That's clearly the intent, yes.
So I'd look for a motion to adopt resolution 2017-12 on the compensation for the justice court judge.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and
It's
seconded.
really hard to
Had
do
to
a
think
rubber
about
stamp
that.
from the beginning.
Yeah. Any further discussion on Resolution 2017-12, approving compensation for the Justice Court judge? If not, let's vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I may ask privilege at this point to
Yes.
be excused.
Yes, we'll excuse you and expect Jake to help us run the rest of this meeting. So the other items that we need to handle related to the FY18 budget is to formally schedule a public hearing on the 2018 budget, which we have tentatively scheduled for August 8th, and give staff any direction related to the public information about tax increases. And Jake, I don't know if you've got a copy of
I do.
the
I'll show.
document, the newsletter document, and how we're advertising how you propose to advertise the.
I actually just got this a few hours ago. So the idea, and you guys can discuss this. This would be the schedule. So we have the Centervilles will be the open house. The public hearing would be on August 8th. 6 o'clock we would have the open house here in the lobby, and then 7 o'clock we'd have the actual public hearing. But at the same time, when the Metro Fire District is having theirs on the 19th, we would commingle with their open house from 6 to 8.
This looks good to me. The only thing that it's not our responsibility to advertise the Metro Fire's official public hearing, but since we're noting ours, maybe do we want to advertise that as well, or just have people who come on the 19th, it'll be advertised then that the fire districts or fire agencies, fire service area open house is that Monday, August 7th, before ours on the 8th. So, council, do you feel good about this? And Jake, maybe you can zoom out to see how large this shows up on the page.
Yeah, so it's almost a third, or no, a little bit more than a third of the page.
I don't know, with this advertising, does it make it look,
I think it makes it, I'm not sure I like it.
I'm not either.
I understand
Oh,
their
like-
need and I understand our need, but I don't think it comes across well to put them both on there. I will say, in my discussions with people in the last few days, I've come upon a misunderstanding about what it is that is being considered to be increased. So when I've been explaining to people that we're only talking about the little sliver of property tax that Centerville collects out of the whole property tax, that's coming as news to a lot of people. So,
And it gets more confusing when we commingle with the fire district. I had the
I
same
agree.
thought when that was suggested. The other recommendation, so I personally would lean towards just having our own separate.
So just the August 8th.
And the other recommendation that I would say is just as large as possible, the two words open house, and then the details of what else you have there. But just to really make sure, if someone's just scanning this entire long newsletter, that they see that.
I agree.
I agree too.
Okay.
So let me make sure we understand. Are you, I would like to make it, to advertise the South Davis Metro Fire Open House. Is your inclination just to remove the line from the top that says Centerville and Centerville City Property Tax Open House? I think the intent is if people come, we'll provide them information, but are you concerned about advertising that it's a joint?
Well, the and
Same.
does make it look joint,
Yeah.
and in that case,
Yeah.
being an additive on 2 tax increases just
So
sounds
we
bad.
still want to advertise the July 19th.
Are you okay
but
advertising?
just the
it?
Centerville
'Cause
City.
I think we need to get the word out.
Could we put it in its own box?
Yeah.
You can have 2 boxes there.
I like 2 boxes better.
Yeah, it
I
looks
think
like we've all
better.
joined together to.
Yeah,
Well-
so,
We're not trying to gang up on the citizens.
we-
That I don't want it to come across that way.
Well,
As a,
well, could I put Centerville, Utah property tax open house and have the 2 dates, July 19th, 6 to 8, and then August 8th?
That works.
I think so. I think so.
So open houses, I guess you can't
and
call
then,
it that.
and then if, to the mayor's point, put an
Somewhere else,
put
can
an
we put a-
asterisk, and then after this box, leave a little space on the bottom that says fire district,
Okay.
open house at this same time.
So people know that
Yeah.
they're at the same time.
Yeah.
Why not just have 2 boxes? I
But
think-
he's pointing out that if we are also making the city information available both nights, to stay in that box about city open houses. So then you can say open houses, which I think is nice to offer more than one. And then the 2 dates,
Yeah, and then
to the
one
2 dates and
address.
times, and then the box underneath
Right.
or the lines underneath, fire district, open house
Yeah.
at this time.
Okay,
I like a box underneath for them, but
You wanna be on
just
top.
us in the big.
okay.
Just us in the big box, I
Yeah,
think.
Okay.
smaller box for the other.
It's our newsletter. We get preference, so.
All right.
And Jake, I think I have both those dates in the mayor's message as well. If not, let's make sure we have that.
Okay, double check on
Double
that.
check.
Now, I do have it advertised in one other spot too, in the calendar of events. Right here, zoom in a little bit so you can see it. So there is this 19th. That needs to be reworded because they're not a department, but there's the South Davis / Centerville tax increase open house. I can remove the South Davis on that and just leave it as Centerville
No,
tax.
just-
Could you just list it,
That's fine.
Just
list the
state it as
date
2
twice?
separate things. July
Yeah, I
19th,
can. I
South
could- I could
Davis,
do both.
July
I think that
19th,
would be
Centerville
even
City,
better.
yeah.
Should I do that? Just list them both?
Yeah.
Okay,
And lead with open house. It sounds like that's the desire.
yeah. And then that, so August 8th as well on that one, open house and public hearing. Okay.
And then if we could just, if we could make sure we've got something big visual that says, here's your, you
The
know,
sliver.
the dollar that's divided up into which portions, and a big bright arrow that says, we're talking about this section right
Yeah,
here.
and that's right
That's-
here.
That's the
on-
really,
On this page right here.
So another thing that I suggested to Jake, in addition to preparing some poster boards, is to take, there's about almost 4 pages of material here between the mayor's message and the other 3 messages, to ask him to have it, basically pull it out of the newsletter, or in addition to the newsletter, take that same content and make up a 2-page
Just a handout?
handout.
That's a good idea.
That we could hand out, make it available to the council. You could, when somebody asks you, you could hand it to them and explain it to them, and we'd have it at City Hall at the front desk, and have that available as some additional, something you could give to somebody.
I think that's a good one.
Okay.
So if you're comfortable with that, the formal action is that we need a motion to schedule the public hearing for the FY18 budget, including the truth and taxation public hearing for August 8th, 2017 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we officially schedule the public hearing on the FY18 budget and truth and taxation public hearing for Tuesday, August 8th, 2017 at 7 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Any other budget issues to discuss? Would you like another work session, or the last 7 work sessions been enough on the budget?
I'm going to say I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Okay. Then we won't plan any others except for these 2 open houses for now.
Although what we'll do with time, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have another work session. I'm not worried about that.
Just
We
a
got it.
different
We got it.
Just a
topic.
different topic.
Don't worry, we got
Just a
it.
different topic, right.
Okay, with that, I need a motion to adjourn to an RDA meeting so we can handle the RDA budget.
Motion to adjourn to an RDA meeting for the purposes of approving the RDA budget to return to the city council meeting after the approval of the RDA budget.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we adjourn to an RDA meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in an RDA meeting. As part of the RDA meeting, before we address the budget, there are some meeting minutes we need to approve. I believe there are two sets, the June 2nd or June 6th RDA ACB meeting minutes, and then the regular RDA meeting minutes. And if those weren't, Katie did a nice job trying to clarify that very challenging situation where we have both the ACB and the RDA meeting. Let me just make sure I've got I don't think I had any. Changes that needed to be made. Anyone else have any changes for either of those two sets of RDA minutes? I did not have any changes.
I move we accept the RDA ACB meeting minutes and the regular RDA meeting minutes from June 6, 2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
Robin will second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Next, on the budget, Jake, as the staff member for this, anything you want to tell us about the RDA budget or the financial report?
Just for the benefit of those that are here during the work session, we did review some of the changes for this current budget year. I'm trying to find that here. I think Steve has it separated out. Here's some changes that we're proposing to the budget. The net impact is zero. It's mainly a cleaning up of our RDA fund. Make it easier to understand and actually reflect reality. That's what that is there. I know it's a little choppy, hard to see. Andy, if you need a copy, I've got one up here for you. It's a little bit easier to read. But we've gone over the work session.
Correct. We went over this, that we take some of the RDA haircut and apply that to the Utopia Capital Projects Fund to pay our annual pledge. And then this is a cleaning up of the debt service transfer for the debt service payment on the Davis Center for the Performing Arts.
Right.
So I believe that we are required to hold a public hearing on this. So with that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing on these proposed amendments to the 2017 RDA budget and invite any who are here who would like to comment on that.
We're usually much more exciting than this, honestly.
I told you it was going to be an exciting meeting. It's all about budget amendments. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and turn it to the RDA board to consider RDA Resolution 2017-01, which makes these amendments to the 2017 RDA budget of funds.
I was waiting for you to motion on that one as a director.
Okay, as a director of the RDA, I will move that we approve RDA resolution, because I can, in the RDA, the mayor is allowed to vote. In the city council meeting, he is not allowed to vote, so I always say vote early, vote often, so this is my opportunity to vote. So I will move that we adopt resolution 2017-02, adopting the, excuse me, that is the wrong one. It is 2017-01, which tells us this is the first resolution of the year for the RDA, amending the 2016-2017 budget of funds.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Lisa, you've been very quiet so far at this meeting.
It's going well.
All those in favor of the budget amendments in 2017-01?
Aye.
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 That appears to be unanimous. So that passes. Next up is the 2018 RDA budget. And we have a resolution 2017-02 to adopt next year's RDA budget, which we've been discussing for some time. Is there anyone who would, any discussion? If not, I'd look for a motion to adopt RDA resolution 2017-02 for the.
It's all yours. Go for it.
All right, seeing that no one else wants to take action today,
We're
I
just
will.
giving
We
you your
just want you to have the
opportunity.
opportunities.
I will move that we adopt RDA Resolution 2017-02, adopting the 2017-2018 budget of funds and related financial measures.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I can answer any questions that you might have, but there's none.
Jake's here.
Okay.
We're trying to cruise through this.
All right.
Oh, okay,
We've
wait.
had
You know,
several
Steve would
budget
always
meetings.
say
Somebody's-
something. I'll just say one thing. You'll notice the format of this is a little bit different. This is what we're intending to do for the next year, actually reflected within the budget document itself. It ties the increment, the actual district, the haircut with the projects.
Which is
Just
much,
so
much,
smart.
much cleaner.
You can read this and understand what it means. That's the point, so.
We appreciate the effort that's gone into that.
Okay, all those in favor of RDA Resolution 2017-02?
Aye.
Aye.
I said aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn the RDA to return to the city council meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we adjourn back to the city council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're back in a city council meeting. Next up, we have this, is the mayor's report. More from me. So let me just pull up some notes on this that I wanted to share about the Utopia UIA meeting, because it's a little bit, you've got some of the background information, and Jake, maybe you can just pull up the, some of those graphs that I think are indicative of the growth.
You're talking from the packet excerpt?
Yes, from the packet, and then we'll talk about the bond issue as soon as I can find my notes here. Okay.
Nope.
So the not that. That's really not helpful.
It's not helpful at all.
But if you go the last page, I think, or if you look at the UIA meeting packet excerpts,
Okay.
that
Yep,
should
that's
have.
where they are.
And just scroll down to the graph that shows the general growth. That's the combined with the showing the revenue growth, and then on this particular graph, the red line is the bond obligations that we have for debt. So the money in between that is being used, some for operations, but mostly for build out, as mostly our Utopia pledge is covering operations. The combined Utopia UIA revenue is about $1.3 million a month. It's growing at about $16,000 a month. They've already deposited next October's bond payment in with the trustee, so much better shape than have been in the past. At the end of this fiscal year, they estimate there'll be about $6 million left in the bond fund for construction. And their, their burn rate right now in the new areas where they're doing construction is about $1 million a month. So if they continue to build out at the current rate, they'll be out of construction funds and would have to cut back in approximately December, January. There might be a little bit of a buffer in there. Those who control the majority of the board have a desire to continue building out. They believe they're seeing good take rates. They're mostly building in Layton and West Valley, as we discussed. And they're using the same type of ROI strategy in terms of looking at where do we think the take rates are going to be most positive, and looking at the cost to build as they have in the past. So they would like to, they intend to keep building. But as mentioned, they'll run out of cash for construction in about 6 months. So Jake, if you'd pull up the UIA memo, there is a recognition that going back to the cities to ask for more bonding capacity is not likely. They also believe that with the continued growth in revenue over the past 5 years, that they're very close, scroll down to the next page, they're very close to a point where UIA would qualify for revenue bonds, meaning the cities would not have to back them with pledge, but could borrow money based on the performance on system revenues, which would be a positive thing. But the bond council believes if we had another year of runway, that would be even better, or maybe 2 years. So when the cities approved back in, I think it was, maybe it shows on the first page, is it 2011, when the cities approved additional pledges for UIA, it was based on some assumptions and certain pledge amounts. And because interest rates were lower and are lower than those original assumptions, they went back and looked at that, and there's actually some additional capacity to bond under the previous pledge agreements that would not have to go back to cities for approval. So that yellow line there represents the additional capacity to cover debt service without going and trying to get city councils to vote again on more debt service, which I think there's a recognition that that would not pass in a number of the cities. So the intent is to issue bonds for this amount, which is about I think 13 million. Is that what I had in the notes? About 13 million with an expected AA minus bond rating, which is quite high, and do this in about October-ish, which would basically allow them to continue construction at the current rate for another year past January. So that would give another 18 months at least of good runway of system revenues, and then after that, the tentative plan would be to try to bond on system revenues and not come back and ask the cities for help. So I think it's actually, whether you agree with borrowing more or not, this is preferable, I think, to taking out or going after additional pledges. And I like the idea of smaller bonds. It keeps a lot of pressure on the Utopia staff to spend the money wisely. Sometimes when there's a bigger amount, it's tempting to just go and try to do big chunks and not be as careful with that money.
So I have a question that's just been on my mind, and it's something that I was trying to ask in the work session that we had with the director of Utopia. But the question is, as we move into these other cities that have not already been built out, the expected ROI, return on investment, is going to be lower. And
that is it was expected it would be lower, and historically they have been lower. What they're seeing as a trend is that, in general, even in areas that previously did not have great take rates, and a lot of the growth that we're seeing is in existing cities, that as people are cutting the cord on cable and going and doing more over the top or video over the internet, that subscriptions are picking up. We're seeing that in Centerville, that subscriptions this past year have actually been growing faster than 2 or 3 years ago.
I can see that might be true. Of course, looking into that future, I think, was the reason this decision got made in the first place, right? We just were not in a great situation to be tied with the cities that we were and the way it was rolled out. But my question is because that wave of the future is so much that the internet's going to be the base format for for all of those services that we have had other options for. Has there been any discussion in these larger cities that aren't built out yet for just those cities doing a utility model?
I haven't heard any more discussion of utility model. There's been some idea of other cities not in Utopia doing a utility model and attaching to the Utopia network and utilizing the Utopia core and all of those things that are already built, but I haven't heard any discussion. I don't know if you have,
I haven't heard any discussion about utility models beyond Macquarie. It was so unpalatable then that I don't think it's going to come back.
There were a couple of local financial institutions that wanted to offer the same thing, but I haven't heard talk of it lately.
No. I think the biggest issue I have with the continued bonding is it just moves the goal line further from repayment back on Utopia. I mean, the intent is, from what I can see from my perspective, and I'm not going to interpret the rest of the board, but those bonds will run full term. I don't anticipate seeing those getting paid off anytime in the near future, because yes, you're backstopping against system revenues, which is your security, and in theory you're going to continue to pay for it as you build out, but you keep borrowing, your old debt does not get retired. It stays there.
Especially when the projections are that the areas that are remaining to be built out are that lower return on investment.
Yes, it's clear that when you look at the majority of the ownership of Utopia, the priority is build out the network to everyone, all the municipalities and all the residents and businesses in those municipalities benefit. That is priority 1. Priority 2 or 3 is paying down the bonds. They want to spread service is a much higher priority than paying down the bonds.
Well, that's why I was wondering if for those cities who are so committed to having the availability and access to all of their residents and businesses, if they have maybe even brought up and been favorable to the idea.
Haven't heard anything.
I think they're looking at the current situation saying that revenues are increasing fast enough that we can continue to build out just using system revenues. We don't have to go to a utility model. So two other things to make note of is our model calls for, on the order of a 35% take rate, which we're getting very close to in Centerville for payback. But what they have found is that the business take rates have been exceeding expectations, and that's where most of the profits are coming from. And as they build residential, they're strategically building it closer to business areas and basically using that as the cash from the profitable business sales to keep building. And then the other point that I mentioned in our work session is the board did approve in the budget to give, I gave you the wrong amount, it was $275,000 back to the cities, and they're trying to technically figure out if this is a dividend or a repayment of operational assessments, or how this is given back to the cities. But it's essentially close to the 2% increase that we
Is
see
it already
annually.
a set determination that it will be based on the vote percentage, not the?
No, it is not. What has been allocated is the budget was approved with a $275,000 budget amount that could be paid back to the cities.
And so it hasn't been determined yet how that will be allocated, what formula?
Correct.
Okay.
Other than it was, as a policy perspective, made clear that those cities that have outstanding assessments,
Sure.
it will go against those assessments.
But I
rather than be
assume our
rebated.
representatives will speak clearly to the point that it should match the assessment formula.
We tried to make that point. The question was, are you paying back assessments, which it says is the highest priority, and that we have to pay back the assessments before they can pay dividends, because originally the plan was, we're going to pay dividends, but somebody pointed out that legally the assessments are loan and they have higher priority, and you have to resolve those assessments first. So then the question came up, well,
Then let's follow the assessment
follow the
formula.
assessment. How do we
Right.
follow the assessment formula?
And if we did receive a dividend, I would just say plow it right back into the Utopia pledge. It's never really comes back to the
Right,
city as
right.
cash.
That's certainly the intent, is to make it softer on cities. So that's the Utopia situation, but I think the continued subscriber growth is a positive thing. And in another 2 months, we'll have more details on whether going forward with those 2017 series bond, but I expect, given the
temperature,
temperature.
yeah, they'll definitely do it.
And you should also note, I think I reported this last time, that Utopia has moved to a new building in Murray. It's on, I think, 900 East in Murray, that Utopia owns, and so they're basically taking the money, or UIA owns the building, and then Utopia is paying them rent. So that money that was going into rent before is now going back into the system. So that's improving the financials. It's a good space. Other thing I wanted to update you on is yesterday on the fire service area. I think we have I don't think there was anything in there about it, but did we include the impact fee analysis in these notes? No. So the fire board has been studying the impact fee analysis for the past few months. The big question was whether nursing homes should be part of the flat overall residential rate, or part of the commercial rate, or should be a separate rate. The reality is nursing homes have an outsized
Call volume.
impact in call volumes. There's a lot of people that get moved around. And if we had a separate impact fee for nursing homes, we looked at it once, and it would be like $400,000 to build a nursing home. So it would be a really egregious fee. And some might say, well, that's fair, that's the real cost. The board, after debating this back and forth, felt like it was in the best interest of the city's economic growth and overall planning to basically have that fee be flat across all areas. So, Jake, I don't know if you can pull up that impact fee. Say it was near the end, but impact fees have been increased. The residential increase was not too significant. I don't think it'll impact building. It was the last page of that, I think, that would be. Keep going. There's a table there. Yeah. Now zoom in on that table. You can see the single family, which includes nursing care, that goes up from $471 is the current impact fee to $644 per unit for each home or each multifamily unit. The big reason, if you recall, why we have to get this in place is Bountiful has not been collecting impact fees. And for example, we just had a big nursing home get built in Bountiful and no impact fees, and it's going to have a huge impact. So with this new structure, all of the cities, this will be a South Davis impact fee. It'll be collected across the board. Centerville, in 90 days, will rescind our impact fee, and it'll only be a South Davis impact fee. But the state law says once you vote for a change, it takes place 90 days from when that vote is. The biggest impact is you can see the hotel motel fee, which is a cost per 1,000 square feet. And though it looks like a big jump, it's really not that bad. And the church meeting place fee also jumped quite a bit. But we did some calculations on that, and it should not be prohibitive.
So on a nursing home, is that $644 per room?
Per room, yes. Which is still significant, but it's better than.
But if a house was built, it's
20
just $644 for the house, so they're
Correct.
still paying.
They're still paying more, but if they were paying their fair share, it'd be like $20,000 a room. Some very, very high amount, maybe $10,000, but it's still a significant.
I might feel better if it was a little higher, but.
The board also held a public hearing, which was attended by Tammy. on
Good job.
the proposed sale of the Centerville Fire Station and purchase of additional land to build a new fire station. And the board made a contingent offer to purchase, contingent on environmentals coming back clean on the property on 3rd South to purchase that land and authorize the sale of the existing fire station. So that is in the works, and basically the wheels are turning on that.
I will mention that I was quite disappointed when I tried to find some sort of publication about that public hearing, and the only place that it's listed, which still was impossible for me to find, is the legally required utah.gov. And it wasn't on South Davis Metro's website. It wasn't anywhere else.
So you're saying this was like a hitchhiker's guide in the filing cabinet, beware of the leopard sort of notice?
Yeah, and I really think that our board members should bring that up as an issue.
It was, the chief is well aware of that, and I think he felt called on the carpet a little bit on that.
Okay.
Yeah, he did bring that up to me.
Will the board follow that up?
It's a good question. The chief has made an effort, excuse me, to do a number of open houses on the tax increase. I'm kind of torn on this. Whenever there's a real estate transaction, sometimes bringing a lot of public scrutiny can cause problems with the real estate transaction. But I think the chief is going to do a very honest job trying to get information out about the proposed tax increase and the long-term capital improvement plans.
Well, I just think any time that there's actually required a public hearing, that it should be because we're inviting the public. And so the South Davis Metro website has a pull-down tab that says agendas and minutes, and there's only outdated listed minutes. There's no agendas. So it was very aggravating to me to have it be so difficult to know, only because I'm in this position that there was a public hearing, and then to want to find out more about it.
And you're saying anyone with less motivation would have given up on, because they couldn't have found
I
it,
had to
right?
give up. I couldn't find anything. That is not the intent of a public hearing under any circumstances. So I would appreciate if that got followed up on.
All right, I will make a note of that. I would say that the fire district does what I think is a good job in terms of they're generally more transparent than even most cities in terms of financials and sharing all that information, but maybe a little bit behind in terms of how they publicize things. All right, Jake, anything in the city manager's report?
No, nothing.
Steve and I tried to find a way to cancel the July 5th council meeting, which is a Wednesday night. Unfortunately, there's a couple of things coming from the Planning Commission, some zoning changes and a couple of lot revisions that it looks like we need to take care of. So I would anticipate hopefully a short meeting on the 5th.
I'll be attending electronically.
Okay. I do have a question about the August 15th meeting. That is also the same night as the primary election.
Sure.
And
And
the
I will-
question is?
Yeah, the question is, do we hold a begin the meeting later? Maybe we won't have anything on the agenda.
I'm out of town. If we didn't have anything on the agenda, that would
I'm-
be great.
We will have things on the agenda, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
You can always be hopeful.
We can look at that. When we've had general elections, we've moved our meeting to the next
The
night.
next day, yeah.
Moving the meeting to the next night is a problem for me too, because I scheduled a trip leaving the day after, thinking that Tuesday was our meeting.
I would think we could
Well,
do
maybe
it a
that's a
little
good
bit
thing.
later.
But
Well-
I think, given it's a vote by mail election,
And the polls are open all day, right, on the primary election day.
I
so.
would think that we could still hold that meeting, but we could have Marcia look at,
Okay.
you could have Marcia look at any, are there any conflicts around that?
Okay.
Would it be,
Lisa, are you aware of anything?
No, we just do it out of courtesy, so.
would it be too much, and this is probably heresy, but would it be too much of a catastrophe to move it up a day instead of back a day?
I'd prefer not to have council meetings on Monday nights.
Well, I do too,
But you
but in a
could,
bind, I
in a
mean,
bind, yeah, you could do it the day before.
that solves your
Well,
problem.
that's an interesting conundrum because we're saying out of a courtesy to not conflict, but at the same time, it's a lack of courtesy because there's importance of consistency of keeping our meetings on the same night, so,
Fair statement.
yeah.
I mean, how many of our public would not would miss the city council meeting because you're standing in a long line to drop your ballot in the box?
In the primary.
I think we'd probably get more people come to the city council meeting because
Yeah.
they happen to come in and vote. and-
They're across the street.
Yeah, maybe, or, yeah, we can't vote here, they're voting across the street, they might walk over.
Yeah,
Time do the polls close at 8 or 7?
I think 8.
8.
But I can't really, like you said, if people are planning on coming, they'll go vote before 7.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have miscellaneous business. And the first item is to report on contacts regarding the name of Founders Park. I think Stephanie and Bill both volunteered to try to talk to folks about that.
I have spoken to 3 folks and no one can even remember. 2 of them were councilmen at the time.
They couldn't remember it at all.
No recollection.
I spoke to the council member that lives near me, and he said that he remembered it, but he said that there was consideration of since the city was paying at least something for that park, then they wanted to have it be inclusive of other citizens. I mentioned to him that there is documentation that the Smith family donated land, and he said, well, good luck with that then. So,
I talked to Mike Barton, who was also on the council at the time. He said he wasn't sure that he realized that they did have actual documentation of it, and that he would assume that if there was documentation, he did vote not to change it. And he said, I think if a family were to give something of that value, that they probably did expect something in return, and that's why it was named that in the first place.
Thank you for those reports. So the city council could ask staff to do more follow-up. I think this is a really challenging situation, given how many years have gone by, and
I think we just change the name. I mean, does it hurt anything?
We would find out, and I think we would find out that it maybe does.
Well, how many times have they petitioned over the years to make this change?
Several, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I haven't found anybody that's cared that it was Founders, but I've talked to a lot of people that felt like it should have been Smith Park. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's been on our agenda. We haven't heard from anybody. And if you go back through the minutes when it was changed in the first place, the only opposition was that they didn't want it changed.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody here to say, we want it to be Founders, but there were a lot of relatives here to say that they didn't want it changed. So I don't know that we'll get any feedback from it.
Yeah, that was the feedback that Councilman Nielsen gave me, was that there was nothing special about calling it Founders. They just picked it. So,
Well, there was the minutes
there was a
make
contest.
mention of a contest.
There was a contest.
But
for that
the
and Island
purpose
View
of the
both.
contest in the first place is where I'm confused.
I
Why
think
they
it was,
had a
I think it was
contest.
to rename a number of the city parks, and this happened to be one of them that was asked to
Put
be
on the
renamed,
list.
is my understanding. So the city council has the prerogative to change the name. I think you ought to think carefully before you do that. I like Founders Park. I think it has more meaning in terms of to people than Smith Park, even though Smith Park is maybe more historically accurate. As I mentioned to you before, tried to find a way to recognize the Smith family by naming the pavilion or putting up a plaque to recognize their significant contribution to the community, but
Which I personally think is a fantastic solution, and even,
But-
in
but
my
that's-
opinion, to honor them, a better solution, because then you have information to actually find out about that family rather than the name of the park, and most people would go, why is this called Smith
But
Park?
if it's Smith Park, you can still
Then
put
you
a
can
plaque
find
up
out.
explaining why it's Smith Park, so that's
Right.
not anything
But
different.
I still like the balance of that we keep it Founders. It's right next to our Whitaker home, and we have the statue of the pioneer that's more of a general celebration of all those who came and settled here.
But it
first.
wasn't all those who donated the land.
Sure.
correct. And half the
mean-
land was donated, our records indicate half the land was donated by the Smith family, half the land is still owned by Davis County.
Right.
And Davis County is not a founder of Centerville. Just FYI.
And that was quite a significant,
Gift.
quite a
So-
significant gift. And we know that they probably did expect something in return, because the county says that if it is not kept a park, it will be returned to those heirs. So maybe those people should have a say what the name of the park is. Sounds to me like that was left in there so that they did have a little something.
So tell me, because I've been meaning in the 2 weeks since we talked about this last to drive by and consciously look at the park. And every time I drive by, I'm looking at the road instead. So
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I know, but maybe I should have walked it. I apologize. What kind of signage do we have at the park that indicates its name?
We have it's not a particular large sign, but it's a sign that says Founders Park.
And
This
we
is
have
the one that Tammy's wanted to replace, I think, for some
We have a
time.
drawn plan, actually already done by a landscape architect, that shows the replacement of that front area and improvement with a larger sign.
So if we were going to change it, it would be definitely good to change it before that sign was changed.
Right. I agree.
No,
No.
that's a,
So is there a reasonable compromise? I started reading that novel about the beginning of Centerville, which is supposed to be mock real, and I don't remember all the family names. But is there a reasonable compromise that you do a sign that says, and maybe we do some kind of a drive to raise money for the sign, because we certainly don't have any extra money in the budget for it, and call it Founders Park, and then have, and I'm just going to pull this number out of the air, 6 of the original family names that were names in Centerville. So you got Founders Park here, and then Smith, Sessions, I don't know what the names are, I can't remember, on each side.
But I kind of have a problem with that, because you're picking names, and if you don't pick
The right name.
the right names, and those people didn't donate the land. The land was donated by
But-
one family, so the whole value of that property did come from the one family. And it was named that, which would make you think that that probably was an agreement, and then years down the line, a city council decided to have a contest and it was changed.
Well, that's why I asked if this, to me, I guess the logical disconnect is if this had been a problem, I would expect to see them here every year, year after year,
And they have
every
been
single
here,
year,
they have
saying
been
this
here
is
probably
wrong.
5 or 6 times, at least, haven't they, Nate?
Two or three at least.
Yeah, they've been here several times to ask for it.
Phil would come regularly, but was to complain about other things. But this was always one of the things he
Yeah,
complained
this
about.
was always one of these things.
Well, and I wasn't trying to discount that they haven't made enough noise about it over time, but generally, from my perspective, the people who have the strongest argument are those who have documentation. And in the lack of documentation, a lot of noise continually creates a historical precedent for the documentation you don't have. in terms of renaming the park, I look at it the same way I do with other public facilities and universities. Universities, if you go and look at, say, the University of Utah, not every building has the name of the original donator of the money. For instance, do you know where Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, I do.
Mhm.
Yeah, some people do, some people don't, because it's not the way that they reference it.
It really screws up the maps.
It does cause havoc with the maps. Whereas we're trying to be inclusive to the whole community. I understand the meaning behind Founders Park. I think the issue I have is there's the plat where it says Smith Park, but that's written in. I don't know if that's, hey, this is the land the Smiths donate. I mean, I don't know, Lisa, if you were arguing that one. I know you hate to be dragged to these, but we've been so quiet. If you've looked at the original recording document that we've received, right, in the packet, it shows the plat and it says Smith Park on it in handwriting.
You mean the drawing?
Or sorry, the drawing, yes, not the
Okay,
plat.
yeah, it's just a drawing. I mean, there was some reference to something recorded. I did look at the title, but it only goes back to, on the online version of the county records that I could get, it only went back to about 1990, 92, so I couldn't find any document. You know, it'd be great, yes, if there was something in the deed that said, we want to preserve for this name, that would be persuasive for me, but I don't know if that exists.
And I did talk to the county, and they could not find that. But they did find, that it actually had been given. They had the deed, the date, the time of when it was given, and then it was named that. Now, whether it was written or a handshake or whatever it was, they do have that documentation, and they also have the documentation that if it's not a park, then the heirs of the people that gave it get the park back. They get the property back. So that kind of tells me that they still have a little.
So I feel like we're talking in circles a little bit because we've covered this. What I would say is, I've obviously said that I think it should stay Founders Park, but if there's a majority of the council who would want to consider changing it, I would suggest that we remand the topic for discussion at the Parks Committee level, maybe at the Landmarks Commission level. These are our bodies that we rely on to give input on these kind of matters. So
I don't think they have any need for this. This is a political thing. This is.
It's not anything to do with.
So what I recommend.
I think it helps get wider
is,
input, though.
If you want to talk to the Sessions family, would they like to make a significant donation to replace the sign and make improvements to the park? And is that persuasive enough to the city council that they want to change the name?
I don't know that the name needs to change right now.
Well, then you run the risk of, are we now saying our park is up for sale? Will this be the?
And they gave us the whole park, and now we want them to buy the sign. I don't know.
You
We
have
could
no
talk
budget.
to them.
Yeah, you have no budget to put in a new sign. Though you have a couple of citizens, a handful of citizens who are fantastic citizens who want to change. Are you willing to spend money for that?
You
So
know,
what kind of money are
I
you
don't know that
thinking?
we need to spend money on it right now. If we're looking at changing the signage and things in the future at some point when we have money, then I think we can make the name change officially right now, and nothing needs to change at the park. In fact, nothing even needs to change for the information for the 4th of July. We can just change on the interactive map and say, this is officially Smith Park. I don't think it hurts
That's
anything.
the kind of
at
thing
this.
that I've heard this council say is a mistake, because it kind of messes up our ordinances. It makes things confusing.
It's not an ordinance, it's a park.
It's a park.
Right, but it's just not consistent. It's, if the.
It's a gradual change
Well, I
back to
don't
what
think
it was
it's quite
before.
that simple. I do think that we reference our parks in our ordinances, so you may want to do an ordinance amendment in the general plan, those kinds of things. But I think absent any evidence, it does not appear to me that the city has a legal obligation to change the name of the park. You're certainly willing to do so. Makes sense to schedule it on an agenda and have a public hearing and make your arguments and decisions, and then direct staff to research what kind of, we need to change our maps and other things. I think you want to do it responsibly to make sure that,
Right.
that things are consistent.
So if you'd like, I'd entertain a motion to, if you really want to put this on the agenda. you
I
could
move we
ask-
put it on the agenda.
Ask staff to research what the implications would be of changing.
And
a
I move
park name.
we have staff research the implications and put it on the agenda for a public hearing.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded, we ask staff to research the implications of changing the park name and put it on the agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Those opposed? No? 4-1, that sounds like it passes. So I'm not sure if it'll be ready for the next agenda, but.
As soon as we're ready.
As soon as we're ready.
Would be great.
And
Thanks.
Robin, if you can find any document, like if the county can get you that deed that has the deed restriction, that'd be very interesting to have.
That would be the decider if you could find that.
Oh, they have that. I should be able to find that.
Okay, next is consider the request to amend the business license ordinance. You heard from Mr. Flannery today on that. I failed to, I thought that I had sent each of you a message on Friday. It appears that I, maybe when in a crash, that did not go out. I've re-forwarded that email to you earlier tonight that has some background information. But I put this on the agenda so that you would have that if you wanted to have a discussion, and if Lisa wanted to provide a background on our ordinance. So
I would like to entertain that. I am going to say because I am a customer and I have a vested interest in looking good, I am going to recuse myself from any vote that takes place, but I do want to participate in the discussion.
Okay, and if you're recusing yourself because you have a conflict, you shouldn't take part in the discussion as well.
It's not a recusal for conflict of interest in terms of financial gain.
Okay, because it's sort of either or.
Okay, I will recuse myself from the discussion.
And because I didn't receive the email, I would appreciate more time to think and study the issue myself to be prepared for discussion. So I wouldn't appreciate spending time on it tonight because I don't feel like I'm prepared.
And does your
Yeah, I
email
haven't-
include the timeline?
it does.
I think that's helpful for them to have.
Yeah, I received it tonight as after council meeting had started, so I haven't had opportunity to read it either.
So maybe
I'm in
it
the
could be
same.
put on a future agenda, and I would appreciate an explanation from staff about the ordinance, why it exists.
It looks like there is some of that in the,
So is there a timeline that's going to not be okay if we postpone this?
Well, my understanding is, I don't want to speak for Mr. Flannery, but there's not been an active business license in 2016 or 2017, and there was a citation issued. We can pull up the timeline real quick. So I'm not sure how to answer the time sensitivity issue. A citation has been issued for operating without a license.
So he hasn't had a business license since 2015. He failed to pay his business license fees in 2016, as well as in 2017. So the timeline will give you all of the enforcement and the notices that went out. So we start out at the lowest level with a notice of deficiency for failure to pay your licenses. That went out in 2016, as well as notice of civil penalties. So then we kind of take it up the next notch. Evidently, that it didn't go any further than that for 2016, but then 2017, the second year, he did get a notice of delinquency, and then I believe they were then the notice of revocation for failure to pay. And that notice of revocation also gives him an appeal period. The appeal period ran with no appeal of the revocation. So in my opinion, the revocation is done. It's not even an appealable decision anymore. And then the criminal citation for operating a business without a license was issued by the police department this last month.
And the appeal body would have been the Board of Adjustments, or what?
Business
I think
licensing, it goes to the city manager. Would have gone to the city manager.
So
So
there's
all
not-
along
there's
that
really
way, there
nothing
were
the mayor
things we
could
could
do,
have
right?
done, but once you have your business license revoked, I mean, in my opinion, the justice court judge cannot even reinstate it. It's not his jurisdiction. The only jurisdiction is the criminal penalty for operating a business without a license. So the justice court will be looking, did you have a license? Were you operating? And so I don't see that the judge has jurisdiction over the business license issue.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and
reinstatement of that.
So
So that's why it takes it to this ordinance
And our,
issue.
and our
So-
ordinance, as it stands today, says if you,
that was a very generous timeline and a lot of opportunity to come speak to it before now as well.
so I don't recall if we've had I don't know if you and Coy discussed if we've had a situation like this.
Yes, we
before.
have, and so in my opinion, the ordinance is there for very good reason, because you can see enforcement is time-consuming and costly on the city side. We do try to give as much time as possible. Certainly, there are unique situations. This is at the top of that list. So, you know, we worked through a number of years to try and get compliance. But we did have an issue across the street with the smoke shop where they were selling either illegal items or to minors, I can't recall. But anyway, we had a lot of problems there and a lot of problems revoking the business license. So we would revoke it for violation of city code, and then they would just open it under a new name. Same people worked there, same operation. So we continued to do this until they ran out of people that were willing to come up with a new business license. So I suppose at that point, we thought about tightening our ordinances. This has been on the books for a long time. It isn't something that we've just put in place, but we did think about tightening them, because right now our ordinance just says a person who has had their business license revoked may not file for a new business license. Does that mean if they file a new business entity with the state, maybe they could? So that was sort of an option that we've given as well. But I know the state will look and say, okay, well, who are the primary actors under that new business entity?
I'll say that my leaning right now is that we have this ordinance in place for a reason, and I wouldn't want to evaluate loosening it or changing it for one particular situation. But if the council is interested in spending staff time and council time on it, I'm willing to research it further and explore it further. But my personal opinion is at this point, I would feel comfortable leaving the ordinances as is and letting the process continue to play itself out.
I think an argument could be made, why do we revoke, or why is it a whole year time frame? Could you know, is 6 months or some other time frame reasonable? But I think we have that. If you don't have the penalty of, if you don't have a business license and you can't operate for a period of time, then what good is the ordinance at all? There has to be some kind of
Right.
a penalty. Otherwise, you would just keep opening, you know, under a new name. But I think it's a fair thing to argue is a year's time, you know, excessive. So
Can we do something? I'm one of the ones that didn't get it, and I'm listening to the discussion and trying to take it in. So, rather than a time frame, can we make it a financial penalty?
Well, I think Lisa would make it. I'll let her respond to that.
Oh.
I'm not
Well,
involved in
there's already penalties for failure to pay your business license, so the next year you come, you need to pay double, and, you know, so the financial issues are there. It's just, giving the city some time to not have to deal with the next code enforcement.
The ordinance is there for a reason, which she just gave a really good example of. When you have a problematic business who wants to ignore our ordinances as written,
We need the
we need to
protection.
have an actual consequence that is significant. And considering the extensive period of time that this has gone on, and the fact that an appeal period of time existed, and I would say we just need to respect the ordinance as it's written.
So I apologize again that this did not get to you on Friday as I had intended. In lieu of that, you know, you're welcome to, if you're inclined, we can bring it back for the next meeting. No matter what, I don't see a very easy fix for this challenging situation. If it was, I would have tried to just resolve it, but I don't have the authority to do that.
So at the end of the day, if we don't do something, it puts him out of business.
In theory, you know, he hasn't had a license for some time.
Shouldn't have been in business.
You should have been not be operating.
No,
without
I
a license,
understand, but that's-
yeah, that's the end effect.
And at the end of the day, your preference would be to try and find a way to help him out.
I have been trying to find a way to help him out because I believe Mr. Flannery provides a good service, and we want to help him succeed. But you know, at the same time, we have to treat people fairly, and you can't say everyone else has to have a business license and follow the rules except for you. Where's that balance? Right now, there's no appealing to the mayor or the Board of Adjustments for relief. It's just not in the system. Could you change that, the appeal process or something? I don't know.
So in your estimation,
I wish there was a clean way to.
Was it age? Was it negligence? Was it? You can't make me do this.
Yeah, you missed the beginning, and Mr. Flannery came and spoke with us and explained the difficult circumstances that he has been in, and admitted some negligence on his part in terms of taking care of the administrative tasks that he needed to. That said, where do you go from here? If you change the ordinance and say there's no penalty, that's problematic. If Mr. Flannery got some other legal advice about other ways to restructure the business and maybe have a different owner for a period of time, I've encouraged him to get some legal advice and look at his options there as well.
So how much are the penalties, Lisa?
I don't know.
There were several $100s.
Now,
is
the
my
business
recollection.
license itself, at least in 2016, the timeline says was $98, so.
I feel that we can't make a decision tonight on this, and so the decision in front of us is whether or not we want to spend the time reviewing the ordinance or keep it in place as is and encourage these other avenues for trying to solve the problem, which is what I would suggest in this situation. So unless there's a motion to put it on a future agenda, I would suggest that that's what we do. At this point, anyway. Let's just encourage the.
If there's not a motion to put on another
other
agenda,
avenues.
I mean, you're still welcome to ask staff for advice, and I'll continue to ask staff for advice, and I can bring it back at a future point, but at this
Yeah,
point.
that's what I'll
The
continue to.
justice and mercy balance is a tricky one for me.
It is a challenge here, for sure.
But I agree, we do need to have something in place as a protection for the city, and I understand the extensive extenuating circumstances. I haven't read the full timeline through, but it does sound like there were some phone calls in addition to, I'm just scanning and picking out a few words, in addition to some written correspondence. So I don't know. I don't feel comfortable changing the ordinance that is there to protect us in so many cases. I do wish that there was something that we could do to be merciful because of the extenuating circumstances, and I don't know.
Well, and I know.
Is there a way for staff to look for that? And
I know I, for
advise
one, will
us if it is?
continue to do my own research, and then if we do that individually, if we so desire, and then come back with a suggestion, I think that's the most reasonable and efficient route for us to do that.
Okay, so I'll look for any advice from any of you on this item, and we'll see if we can come up
See
with some
what we can do.
ideas.
Okay.
I do not have any appointments, but I'd like to have a short closed meeting, as we haven't discussed annual city manager evaluation process. So which I think could be, there's no.
No need to return?
No need to return.
So,
um,
Motion to adjourn the city council to adjourn to a closed meeting to discuss the character or competence of an individual as allowed by state law.
Second.
So moved and seconded, we go into closed meeting for purpose of character and competence. There will be no intent to return, and we'll adjourn our city council meeting after that. All in favor? Oh, we need to do a, roll call vote for closed
Aye.
meetings.
Aye.
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 Thank you.